I thought it would be fun to help reinforce the concepts of ports and how they're used at the transport layer by using Wireshark, a protocol analyzer, to take a peek at some of the protocols just to verify the ports that are in use. And in preparation for us looking at that together, let's cover a few well-known ports for 4 specific protocols. HTTP, the well-known port for that at the transport layer is TCP port number 80. Telnet, which is used to get remote access with a command line interface to another system. The well-known port for that is TCP port number 23. DNS, which is used all the time to make a request to resolve a name like www.cbtnuggets.com to an IP address for our computer to then use. The transport protocol and port at layer 4 for DNS requests is UDP as the protocol and port number 53 for the DNS request. And then finally here in this list, FTP, the file transfer protocol. The well-known port for that is TCP port number 21, and that's just for one component or one piece of a standard FTP request. So here, looking at a packet capture for an HTTP request, this is entry number 4. We have the client request with a source port of 3372 with a destination port of the well-known port of TCP/80 for HTTP services. And what we would expect to see, and we can find that in the very next entry, which is entry number 5, we have a response coming back from the server, sourcing it from port 80, TCP port 80 on the server, going back to the client's port of 3372. Here's an example of Telnet. So at the application layer for this entry, which is entry number 4, it shows the application layer protocol is Telnet. And then at the transport layer, we have TCP with a source port of 1550, chosen by the client, going to the well-known port of the server at port 23. And if we take a look at the next entry, which is entry number 5, we can see that the response is coming back from the server from port 23, going to the client's port of 1550. In this example, we have a DNS request. And so with entry number 1 selected here, down here in the details pane, we have a domain name system query, a DNS query. And at the transport layer, we're using UDP, which is what a DNS query uses, the source port being 32,795 with a destination port being 53, which is the well-known port that a DNS server would be listening on. And if we go to the next entry here, which is the response from the DNS server, at the transport layer protocol, we can see that the source port is 53 and the destination port is 32,795. And for our 4th example, let's take a look at FTP. FTP uses the well-known port of 21. And so if we look at the transport layer information, here we have the transmission control protocol being used at layer 4. We have a source port from the client of 1026 with a destination port of the well-known port for FTP of 21. And if we take a look at the next entry here, the one right below it, which is the response back from the server to the client, the source port from the server to the client is using port 21 as the source with a destination port of 1026. In this nugget, we've taken a look at Wireshark to reinforce the concepts of how ports are used at the transport layer in the TCP/IP protocol suite. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.